So as a Frenchman, I was always brought up in the impression that Napoleon was the great.
He's a great general, he's a great statesman. This period, 1814, the campaign of France, is possibly his greatest moment as a general. He manages to be all around Paris and in the Champagne region. He manages to keep the Allied forces at bay, amazingly, with very few troops, lots of people dying all over the place, but he keeps it together. So it's quite extraordinary that in the end he loses. Alexander is delighted, not only because he's getting one over on his arch rival, he's finally in a position of superiority with respect to Napoleon. So when he comes into Paris, he's like, oh yes, this is great. I can now be the magnanimous ruler. I can now say to Napoleon, yes, it's all right, I will forgive you. Talleyrand has been quite significantly working against Napoleon for the last 6 years because of basically Napoleon treated him so badly. Talleyrand obviously wants Alexander in his house, so he says to Alexander, oh, don't go to the Élysée Palace that's possibly been set up with mines, so you come to my house. Alexander, of course, knows that Talleyrand has one of the best chefs in Europe. Of course, Carême is rushed off his feet, feeding the whole of Europe that counts at that point. And it's Talleyrand that deals with Alexander. They kind of decide the fate of Napoleon and they decide the fate of France together.
So bizarrely, after all of that, it wasn't the end of Napoleon after all.
Well, no, it's quite unusual, really. Yes, Alexander decides to be gentle with Napoleon and demands that they send him not very far away. They sent him to the island of Elba, just off the west coast of Italy.
It was a decision that would come back to haunt the Allied forces. Carême cooked for the Tsar and his generals for those 10 crucial days of diplomacy. Talleyrand insisted that he design menus that were suitable for the Russian palate.
This is a classic Carême recipe. And you can see why his Russian customers will have loved this one. It's got all the perfect ingredients. I probably would like to compare it to a bread and butter pudding, but it's not a bread and butter pudding, it's called pudding diplomat. Whisk all eggs and add custard and then vanilla sugar. Then add the milk to make a crème anglaise. Keep that aside. And here on my rack, I got some little disc of toasted brioche. So I use a cutter and I cut the slices and I just put them under the oven grill to toast. And this is my serving dish. Just classic little ramekins, and they've been brushed with some melted butter. So buttered, melted butter on a toasted brioche, and this going inside on the bottom of our ramekins. And you have to use brioche. Don't start using white bread because you're just going to lose the whole idea of the recipe. And you will end up with a bread and butter pudding. And here in this dish, I got some glacé fruit, and they've been soaked for an hour in dark rum. So they're lovely and juicy. I'm just gonna put a layer of the glacé fruit on top of the brioche and put some of the rum juice as well with it. You know, 200 years ago, glacé, the fruit, was a way to preserve them. So they used to have a big pile of them as a centerpiece on the table. So they used to have like mountains of mini oranges and pears and multicolored. They really loved the glacé fruit in those days. So I'm putting another layer of brioche, pressing it down well. Egg mixture inside a jug. So I just want to fill it till I cover my second layer of bread, of brioche. And because of the eggs, they will rise a little bit in the oven. They won't turn up like a souffle, but they will rise a little bit. So a little bit more glacé fruit. And the final disc, just a bit more bread, but I'm going to cut them in half. And just put them like this. And I'm just going to top it up with the rest of the egg mixture, making sure the top layer as well get coated, so that will get a nice color in the oven. And I'm going to sprinkle a bit of dark demerara sugar on the top to give it a bit of a crust. That's going to go in a kind of medium oven, 150 degrees, probably for 30 up to 40, 45 minutes, depending on the oven. We want a nice color on the top and to see them fluff it up. So, okay, so they're going to cook in a bain-marie. So this very clever device here. So I'm just going to fill this tray with water. I mean, if you haven't got that set up, you can just put it on a deep baking trays. So I just put them back in like this. That's perfect. Be really taking care of that. Put them in the oven at 170 degrees for an hour. And they should rise. I did say they will rise, not like soufflé, but they could almost be soufflés. So let me just lift them up from. They look absolutely amazing. And normally I will serve this with maybe like a crème anglaise with a bit flavored with a bit of rum as well to match the flavor of the glacé fruit we have inside. And that's perfect. You can feel the top is nice and crunchy. You got all this lovely glacé fruit and the lovely smell of the rum. Perfect dessert for a winter evening. Perfect, perfect. Pudding diplomat.